In 2012 AD, the Roman Emperor Caracalla issued an edict declaring that every free man living or born within the Roman Empire was a Roman citizen. And thus, we established the principle of jus soli, citizenship not by blood, but by soil. Up until then, you see, you could only be a Roman citizen if you came from Italy. But Caracalla said it didn't matter who your parents were, you were a Roman citizen if you lived within the Roman Empire. Now, his motives might not have been purely noble. His critics at the time said he acted largely to increase his tax base and to increase the number of people who could serve in the Roman army. Nonetheless, Caracalla established our enduring notion of birthright citizenship, citizenship based on where you were born. 1400 years later, in a landmark ruling, Sir Edward Coke, England's Chief Justice, established the same principle in English common law. In 1608, Coke said, and I quote, "Everyone born within the dominions of the King of England, whether here or in his colonies or dependencies, being under the protection of, and therefore, according to our common law, owing allegiance to the King, and is subject to all the duties and entitled to enjoy all the rights and liberties of an Englishman." Now, of course, not everyone born within the confines of the British Empire was all that keen to be a British subject, but the principle held. Citizenship wasn't based on blood, it was based on birthright. That's the tradition Canada inherited, a tradition we've proudly upheld. You're born here? Doesn't matter who your parents are or where they were from. You are a Canadian as any other Canadian. But here we are in 2018, and the Conservative Party of Canada wants to upend the principle that is central to our sense of Canadian identity. On the weekend, the Conservative Policy Convention endorsed a motion which would restrict citizenship. A baby would only qualify if at least one of his or her parents were either a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident. The ostensible reason is to cut down on so-called birth tourism. But given how small a problem birth tourism actually is in Canada, do we really want to throw out generations of tradition and redefine what it means to be Canadian? There's such a toxic spirit of xenophobia out there right now. Maybe it was naive of me to think Canada would be immune. But let's be honest. Canada isn't at risk of an invasion of alien babies. We're at risk of losing the spirit and the values and the principles that make us Canadian.